When your mama won't go, you know. Come mama go garage. And so, hey man, what seems to be the problem? I'll go ahead and tow you to the mama go garage. Mama go!
By now, many of you have probably heard of the long-awaited and much-anticipated game Beyond Good and Evil 2. Set in the far future, humanity has developed sophisticated cross-species gene tailoring. The world is populated by human-animal hybrids. These hybrids are treated like second-class citizens by the powers that be. In this case, descendants from Earth's greatest superpowers, China and India. Your role is to become a space pirate, exploring the massive open world system at your fingertips. The game has been in development for years at this point, with no clear end in sight. If you want to assist in development, you can join Ubisoft's Space Monkey program, where they release somewhat irregular updates. You can take part in their Hit Record partnership, where members of the community can submit artwork for the game and songs for the in-universe radio. But surely you've noticed the 2 in the title, right? Let's have a look at the origins of this series. Released all the way back in 2003, Michel Ancel's Beyond Good and Evil is a cult classic. The game's writing and music are some of the best from the era. And this isn't coming from some nostalgia-driven bias. I first played the game in 2019, 16 years after its release. It holds up well, better than a lot of the games of the era. Although it did give me what I'm going to refer to as second-hand nostalgia. It brought back strong memories of Ratchet and Clank, Jak and Daxter, and dozens of other early 2000s games. It's cherished by those who played it, and it was reviewed very favourably upon release. Unfortunately, the game was badly received when it was showcased at E3 2002, leading to some design changes, particularly with the protagonist Jade. It ended up selling poorly due to its negative reputation and an oversaturated Christmas market. So much so that in 2009, copies of the game were given out for free in Canada with packets of the Cheeseheads brand of mozzarella. I've given up on trying to figure out the connection. I wouldn't say it's necessary, but before you start you might want to have a look at getting some mods to bring the game up to our modern standards. The reason I'm talking about this is because the in-game option menu looks like this. Yeah, it's a bit bare bones. If you prefer to just play the game as is, or you just aren't interested in playing, skip to this point in the video. I found this through a post by Reddit user MaxiU Gaming. I'll link the post down in the description. Make sure you've opened the game once already before following these instructions. First, get the ENB mod. The link takes you to the ModDB page and hit the big red button. The download should be instant. Go to your game folder and extract the mod. Start Settings, don't change anything as the widescreen mod will do all this, and hit Save. Open up your game executable, and if everything worked, you should see a small info box in the top left corner, which disappears after a few seconds. You can then go to the enbseries.ini and change the settings to fit your preference. I turned off the color correction feature and disabled motion blur and depth of field, but that's just my preference. Then, to get the widescreen fix, again follow the links and download the file. Before extracting the file, go to your game folder and rename d3d9.dll to d3d9_proxy.dll. Extract the files, open the resolution settings, choose your preference, and you should be ready to go. There's just something about that menu intro that just screams early 2000s. Some scenes still look really good, almost cartoony, The opening cutscene looks great, but the game definitely shows its age in some areas. Background objects can be a bit lacking in quality. Some models definitely show their age, and most of the flora is in the form of 2D sprites. But that certainly wasn't uncommon back then. Despite these setbacks, most of the environments look great, particularly the caverns. Occasionally you'll notice assets popping in, but this is a rare occurrence. The hovercraft projectiles also seem to appear from the windshield. You can also switch to first-person mode in the hovercraft, something I didn't realise until I accidentally pressed E in the middle of a race. The cutscenes look good, but sometimes they have this weird blurry overlay, something that isn't present for most of the game. And you have to sit through that infuriating looters cutscene every time you try a looters challenge. Let's have a look at the character design. There's anthro animals. It's never explained in this game, so I won't go into the lore behind it, but yeah, shark men, rhino mechanics, eagle shopkeepers, and cat women. Jade, the protagonist, definitely suits her name. Green eyes, lips, clothes, headband. They kind of went a bit overboard. Her uncle, Paige, spelled like this, is a pigman, and he looks exactly how you'd expect. He even has fart boots. There are plenty of alien animals as well, but the best have to be these buff frogs. Overall, the world looks great, and it does wonders for immersion. They even went the extra mile to add a day-night cycle. Though the speed at which the planet seems to rotate is worrying. Speaking of the planet, later, in the space section of the game, you can look back on it, and it doesn't seem to resemble the surface visuals at all. In fact, it barely looks habitable. The model they use for the moon also gives the impression that the moon is very small and close, rather than the intended illusion of it being large and far away. Now, I can't talk about the visuals without mentioning what I think is the worst part of the game: the camera. It can range from perfectly functional to downright uncontrollable, especially in the hovercraft. Stealth sections confusingly change pitch control to height control, and sometimes the camera just wants to stay fully tilted up or down, leading to you having to wrestle with the camera to look forward. The game also uses fixed camera angles, which can be a nightmare during combat sections. Kills can lead to cinematic slow motion, which is nice, but it can be really disorienting mid-fight. The photos are also offset, usually sitting much lower in the frame than when you took the picture. It's strange, seeing as this is one of the game's main mechanics, but it might be down to the mods I'm using. Right off the bat, the game's sound design is brilliant. The music and ambience are both sublime, and work perfectly together. Just have a listen to these clips.
del sol. Ole, 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 ole. O cuando rueda del sol. Ole, 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 ole. Cuando rueda del sol. Ole, 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 ole. O cuando rueda del sol.
Propaganda della seta calava da cava della seta da cava in sera da cartiera che da quando che varia da seta che da prima donna prima da cava da cava da morica di Nicolo da chissà ko arriva no anda qui ha fatto scelta che da propaganda propaganda.
The voice acting doesn't quite meet the same standards set by the rest of the sound design, but it's okay.
Your sunny smile is thanks enough.
Yeah, I'll give you a sunny smile.
On their own screens using this long-range transmitter.
That's an excellent plan.
Double H is definitely the best sounding character. I never tire of his Carlson and Peters lines.
Hey, what the heck is this thing?
What does Carlson and Peters think?
They say that it would be suicide. But I say, when the going gets tough.
There are a few crusty sound effects here and there, such as this awful sound Jade makes when grabbing a ledge. And the robo voices for machines make me cringe.
Account identification, okay.
But altogether, the sound design is excellent. I only wish they recorded more than one line for the race announcer, which plays every single time you start a race.
The whips, the weak, and the wusses still have 3 more seconds to get the hell out of here and back to your knitting!
This game doesn't have the easy to follow quest markers that we're used to in modern games. If you get stuck, you're stuck. I found myself having to look up a walkthrough once or twice when I had no idea where to go. But let's start with the basics. Combat is controlled by mashing the attack button while holding a direction to swing Jade's Daijo, occasionally dodging, and later shooting gyro discs using your camera to aim. Some parts of the game require basic platforming, dodging traps, stealth, and pushing blocks with the boys. Jade usually has a companion with her, either Paige or Double H, both of whom have special abilities to help you in combat or to reach certain areas. You can exchange specific items with them in your inventory, as well as boosting their health by giving them some of the PA1s you've picked up. Though, to be honest, I never had a companion go down, so you may as well just keep all the PA1s for yourself. There are item vending machines around the world that sell both upgrades and consumables, even in some of the most unlikely places. Money can be collected through combat, destructibles, or through the game's main side quest, taking pictures of animals. The Science Center rewards Jade with money, and once the film reel is finished, pearls. Both of these are valuable commodities, so keep an eye out for animals. Even the humanoids count. Sometimes you might find yourself trying to capture an image during a fight, just to add that extra level of stress to the combat encounter. It can be rather unnerving when you're looking through the camera and a companion is standing next to you.
Hello there.
Maps can be fully unlocked by taking a picture of them. Pearls can be won through a variety of methods. They're required for story progression, in the form of the hovercraft upgrades. So get as many as you can, so you don't have to backtrack later in the game. Minigames like Francis' game, the races, and looter challenges are a good source of pearls. Getting all the pearls gives you access to the Yo Pearl minigame, but it's not really worth backtracking for. Between missions, you can explore the overworld in the hovercraft. Your progression through the story is tied to the upgrades you get for the hovercraft, which ends up attaching to the spacecraft later in the game. Now, let's talk about the M discs. Like many games from the era, this game does not let you save at any time. You need to reach these M disc readers in order to save your progress, so save regularly. They double up as a means to open the various M discs you receive throughout the game. Most are effectively slideshows, but some contain minigames such as the Yo Pearl one I showed earlier. As a side note, you can use the internet code on your save screen to get a special code from the Darkroom website, which is miraculously still up after nearly 2 decades. This gives you access to the locker next to Francis' game, containing an M-disc with a multiplayer version of his game. But back to the main game. Walking around, you can talk to most NPCs. This just gives a text box with dialogue options. Sometimes you'll need specific keys to access certain areas. These are unlocked throughout the story. Later in the game, you gain access to flight, and eventually limited space flight. Ignore the weird ice wheels. I'm only going to cover the story very briefly, as I hope people will try out the game for themselves. Skip to this point in the video to avoid spoilers. The game starts with a newsreader telling us of the war that's come to the mining planet of Hillis. We are introduced to our protagonist Jade, a photographer and investigative reporter. We also meet Jade's uncle, Paige, and her holographic AI companion, Secundo. The planet is being protected by the Alpha Section, a stormtrooper-esque military organization. Hillis is under attack by the Doms, a hostile alien race set on kidnapping the people of Hillis. Jade receives a mission from a Mr. de Castellac to photograph 2 Doms creatures. After the mission, it is revealed Mr. de Castellac never existed, and the contact is actually Mr. Hahn, a member of the Iris Network, a group dedicated to revealing the true nature of the Alpha Sections. Jade meets up with the organization, and they task her with taking photographic evidence of the Alpha Section's involvement with the Doms. At the factory, Jade rescues another Iris member, Double H, who assists her in retrieving further evidence. Paige is captured and taken away with the other prisoners. Jade reveals that the Alpha Section are actually mutants working with the Doms. Jade and Double H then have to break into the slaughterhouse, using a secret entrance in the 3rd racetrack. They discover that the prisoners are being sent to Selene, the planet's moon. Jade fixes up Paige's old spacecraft, the Beluga, but the lighthouse is attacked before work finishes, and the children are taken. Jade and Double H travel to the moon to transmit an Iris message to all of Hillis and rescue the captured civilians. I won't go into the details of the ending, but I will say this: the game leaves off with a cliffhanger ending and a post-credits scene. I feel sorry for the fans of the game who have been waiting for nearly 20 years for a sequel. I hope Beyond Good and Evil 2 will have been worth the wait. Overall, Beyond Good and Evil is one of the best games that I've played in the last few years, and that's really saying something considering its age. The story, the visuals, and the incredible sound design all wrap you up in the world of System 4. I got the game on Uplay, or I guess Ubisoft Connect now, for less than a tenner in 2019. It usually goes for about £4.29, but occasionally gets lowered to around £1 during sales. Alternatively, you can pick it up on GOG for the same price. It's definitely worth it. It's only a 2.4GB download, so it won't take up much hard drive real estate. The game is a joy, and really brings back feelings of playing early 2000s platformers on my tiny TV. I'd say it's definitely worth playing if you're interested in Beyond Good and Evil 2, though I think the sequel might actually be a prequel, so I wouldn't say the first game is necessary for following the story of the second. It's certainly worth it to get the full experience. The sequel has clearly grown with its original audience, as it's set to be a far more adult and grittier look at the Beyond Good and Evil universe. So that's it, the first video on my channel. Thanks to the channel on screen for both inspiring me to finally get off my ass and do this review, and for influencing the format that I ended up going for. Some of them aren't really in the same genre as this, in fact most of them aren't, but they inspired me nonetheless. A particular shout out to Mandalore Gaming, Up Is Not Jump, Ordinary Things, and Absurdist Films. I'll hopefully have another video in the works soon enough, maybe out by the beginning of next month, but we'll see. Thanks for watching, and I know it's overstated, but please, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. It really helps small channels like this. Consider subscribing for more, and leave a comment on what you'd like to see me review in the future. Thanks for watching. I know it might have been a bit of a long video, but thanks.